I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. I'm going to talk today about how if you would skip everything else in your life for sex, this is not the flex you think it is. And I will get to that as soon as I tell you to subscribe. We have close to 200 subscriber episodes, most recently on how thank you is not a compliment and what a meaningless thank you looks like. And then whatever the next one is going to be subscriber, because I do it every fourth episode, so 25% of them. Okay, so a lot of the time when people tell me that they are, especially like this is more on the internet. This is not like the super high achieving people that I work with, obviously, but there is there's a little bit of overlap with the higher achievers as well, especially as they get older and they don't have as much stuff day to day that's really on deadline. Because you own a company, whatever, you're a little bit more flexible in some ways, it seems, than, of course, somebody who's an underling and has to report to a boss. But either way, sometimes people say, like, I would skip anything to have sex with her. I would have sex any of the time. I would come home from work or anything else to have sex. So I don't see why she won't do it because I'm so flexible about when I would do it. Well, I mean, good, that's nice that you are flexible for something you want. So that part is less nice. But here's the thing. It does not make you appealing to a woman to say that there is like nothing in your life that is as important as sex. I mean, like just straight out, think about it. And think about other ways that you may have been conveying this idea. So like if you're in a completely sexless relationship, as I've said so many times, you can't really be in a relationship with no sex and no touch, because that's usually what it is too. You can have no sexual intercourse. Obviously, this happens to a lot of older couples physiologically. But if you are in the classic sexless marriage, also has no touch, and it really doesn't have a lot of emotional intimacy. And if you say, this is not what I want for my life, okay. But if you're somebody who is having sex and is having touch, but you still somehow make this like the be all and end all and the most important thing, and like you would skip anything to have sex, this makes you seem obsessed with sex. And remember, unless you're procreating, which it's not like guys are saying, yeah, I mean, she'd be happy if you're like doing the rhythm method, trying to make a baby, and you say, yes, in your fertile window, I will come home to have sex. Great, cool, you're on board. But point being, like, the guys are basically saying, for sexual pleasure, for the dopamine hit of an orgasm, I will leave my job, which therefore is not that important to me. I would skip out on anything social. And you remember, these preoccupied attachment guys that say things like this, they don't have much social stuff going on because, God forbid, their wife could want to hang out. They don't want to be doing something social at that moment because they're obsessed with this idea that at any moment, if they follow her around enough, then they'll get laid. And they're basically saying, like, my career is less important than an orgasm. My social life is less important than an orgasm. My entire life is actually not that important. There's very little I find meaningful, and that's why I'm obsessed with sex. For real, that's how it comes off. And think about it. It may be the case. like you may need to do a deep dive. This could be like the moment that you actually get into therapy because you're like, well, I thought that's totally normal to be a dude. No. It's like... If you watch too much porn, you think everybody's kind of addicted to sex and fucking all the time, and they're like always, everybody's walking around on the street just thinking about the next time that they could get laid, except for your wife, who uniquely is a buzzkill, and you watch the amateur stuff, so you know that those are real women, and those real women want to fuck all the time. No. You know, I mean, if there even are a few women that are real on the internet, you know, then that is a very, very different sort of person than the average. You know, there's nobody that's saying that those people are anywhere but the tail of the normal distribution. And most people do not want their wife to videotape sex and to be somebody who's swinging and wants other men to see them on the internet and all of this. You know, most people do not want a lifestyle centered around sex for their wives, but somehow they want their wife to be in the mood like all the time and to put everything underneath sex the way that they would. So structure the days around it, structure the weekends around it, structure everything around it. And I'm totally not saying you shouldn't schedule sex. You should. If you say that you want to have sex Saturday mornings, great. But if you say you're going to have sex Saturday mornings with the kids in front of the TV and one of the kids is sick, then it's game over. You're not having sex. Like, that is the truth. If you say that you're going to come home early from work so you guys can have some time together before the kids are back from school and you get a big work assignment, then fucking do it. You know, there is no woman that wants you to sacrifice your career, your fatherhood, you know, like being a good dad, or even a social life to fuck. We gotta just kind of see it for what it is when guys are super, super preoccupied about this topic. It is a proxy variable. You were raised without enough affection and enough attention. And now you're engaging in this hypervigilant, preoccupied attachment, and you've made it only around sex, probably because you watch too much porn. So you follow your wife around, you stay home when you should be out, you're not going to the gym anymore as much as you should, you're not hanging out with friends, you're not even really hanging out with your kids as much as you should in the way that you should, because you're not fully present. You're becoming obsessed with your wife and almost like tracking her movements and figuring out if you're going to get laid. So the real flex is having a life that is so fulfilling and that sex is really a part of it. One part, not the whole thing, not the reason that you wake up in the morning, you know. And if you watch other TV, I did a little video on this and it really, people said that it was very useful for them. And I don't know if I did a podcast on the sitcom yet. Maybe I did, but maybe I will. But the point is that when you are in a happy family, it's more like a sitcom than something dramatic. And kids don't realize this if they grow up in a dysfunctional family. Then they think that the things like Family Ties or Growing Pains or whatever, or, you know, whatever the ones are that are more recent, are bullshit and nobody really lives like that. But the kids who are in happy families identify with those families, you know, that are on TV. And remember, like the dad on Growing Pains wasn't just following his wife around trying to get laid. You know, he was being a dad. He was going to work. He was coming back. That's actually a very useful frame for what a healthy family should look like. And of course, I used to watch this show Friday Night Lights. Here's an example. And in Friday Night Lights, the couple, the coach and his wife, went away. They were going to have sex in a hotel. But they got a call and their daughter was in trouble and they didn't get to have sex in the hotel. Okay, normal, totally normal. And you just know that that guy and all of his securely attached brethren that exist in the real world was not going to sulk and be angry and mad and prioritize sex over going to help his daughter. And that's totally normal. Even though it's TV, we can learn a lot from TV, because what TV is it's usually a healthy, securely attached characters. Now, there are other things that aren't. So if you're watching porn all the time, those people are not acting securely attached. Because the reality is that a securely attached couple is not having sex all the time. They could have porn style sex sometimes, but they're not having sex all the time. So these amateurs that are having new sex every day that you see, This is not a normal relationship. This is not a healthy relationship. Where are those people's children? I mean, what are they going to say? The children, oh, mom and dad were in the room all the time, for my childhood. That is probably what they were going to say. Because I see these people in my office all the time that grew up in chaotic family units. And they say, mom and dad were always fighting or whatever in the room. And sometimes I heard sex noises. Sometimes I heard yelling. And sometimes I heard crashing. It's like a very dramatic, chaotic relationship. It's like Twilight. I watched Twilight with my daughter. I'm like, this shit is crazy. This dramatic shit is what people that grow up in those chaotic homes think is realistic. And it's not. Realistic is more like the sitcom. And so what your wife really would respect is for sex to be a part of what you think about, not everything. When it's everything and you would drop everything at any moment and you're basically always following her around waiting for her to drop things that she's doing, this is not about sex and it's not about love. It's about preoccupied attachment. You want to get into therapy and figure out why you're so obsessed with sex only. And many guys say it's because you're not having it. Well, if you're not having it, then the healthy thing to do would be to think, do I want to stay in this relationship? Or to work on the relationship, or to push couples counseling. Because it is not an option to track your wife like a hunter and his prey and to constantly make sure that you're around all the time and to almost brag about, or really brag about, how you would put sex and having sex over anything else. That is not normal either. She may prioritize sex too little, but you are prioritizing it too much. And so therefore you are becoming a distorted caricature of, somebody who's obsessed with it, and she's getting more sexless and more turned off in response to that, and because it's not about her, by the way. And she knows that, and that's what everybody knows when they're with a preoccupied attachment person. When you're very young, then you think, this person's so obsessed with me because I'm so wonderful, maybe. As you get older, you're like, oh, they're just like that. The story of who they are is that they're obsessed with relationships, they're obsessed with validation, they're obsessed with sex, whatever it is, and I am just who it is, Whereas securely attached relationships, you really feel like you click as people. But people constantly say that when the husband or wife is preoccupied attachment, they feel like it's not about them. It will be about whoever they were in a relationship with. And frequently, if you talk about exes, like I always tell you guys to do, because it gives a lot of interesting information about your partner, then they were like this in their prior relationships too. Obsessive. I mean, so many women have like this crazy eye-opening experience when the guy says, oh yeah, I never thought I was having sex in my other relationships as much either. It's funny because sometimes he says it to make a point, but the point goes awry because he's like, oh yeah, I thought that sex was bad in my, first marriage, but it wasn't anything as bad as this. And she's like, wait, hold on. You had a whole other marriage where you were complaining about sex? And he's like, well, yeah, but I didn't know, how bad it would be. Like now we only do it once a month, and she and I used to do it once a week, and I still thought that was bad. And she's like, so what you're basically saying is that you have never been happy with a woman in bed. And it's very freeing for her, honestly, to hear it. And it's life-changing, for if a skilled therapist helps with that epiphany, the guy can say, well, shit. I really never have been happy with a woman. I've always been up their asses to give me more, love me more, pay more attention to me, and have more sex with me. Why? Either why do I pick women who will do this to me, and or why do I create this dynamic in my relationships? How does that go back to family of origin, etc.? And it's the exact same thing when women are up there, husbands asked to pay more attention to them. When the woman is the preoccupied attachment one, she'll often go back to full out high school. Be like, yeah, I always ended these relationships because guys weren't giving me enough attention. Well, shit. That's a hell of a pattern. And where do we think that originated? And how are you perpetuating it and making it worse? By clinging to this person in a way that they find very stifling and picking people who are avoidant to begin with. So there is you can't use attachment as just, by the way, you can't just be like, oh yeah, my wife's avoidant attachment. That's it. No, if she's avoidant attachment, what are you? You're preoccupied attachment. If she thinks about sex too little, what about you? You may think about sex too much, and you often do. So if you were securely attached and she was securely attached, you would be a different couple. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. So coulda, woulda, shoulda. If one person is insecurely attached, they attract and stay with another person who's insecurely attached. Only looking at one person's part of the problem, blaming it all on them is really toxic, and it just almost makes sure that you will not resolve the issue because you're playing the blame game instead of actually looking at it. So this can be your wake-up call. If your covert or overt kind of flex or compliment to yourself is that you would put forget about sex. You know what? In this final minutes here, that wasn't what I was looking for. It was like some sports term, but I don't know any sports term. But bottom of the ninth, is that a thing? So at this late date, bottom of the ninth, that's an inning, I believe, we will actually zoom out and say, if you would put the relationship over everything, it's still wrong. It's still bad. That's also not a flex. Because if you would put the relationship over everything at every moment, yeah, it's okay. Your wife's the most important person to you. Great. But also your kids should be, by the way. But whatever. All right, let's say that's healthy to be in a loving relationship. Your wife's the most important. But if every single time that your wife wanted to call you or text you, you stopped every single thing you were doing from your kids' play, like imagine, you're at your kids' school play and like your wife texts you something or like you get like an email from her, and I don't know why she wouldn't be at the play. Maybe she's traveling, and you like leave the kids' play to like go out and talk to your wife. That's not a flex. That's terrible. That's being a bad father. Or if you're at work, you're like in your work evaluation, they're talking to you about your bonus and she texts you and then you like text her back, like right in your fucking work meeting. That's that's preoccupied attachment, right? That is true attachment insecurity and anxiety. That isn't good either. So if you have been thinking that you win this relationship and you are the more committed and healthy partner because you would put her/sex over everything, it just means you're anxious attachment, preoccupied attachment. And then you go back and listen to and read all my stuff on preoccupied attachment. All right, I hope this was useful and I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, guys.